Milling Through History presents The Man from Mayberry. There is perhaps no other individual on the face of the earth who can be associated with something as simple as a whistle. Andy Griffith, sometimes referred to better as Andy Taylor, or even from those of an older generation, Ben Matlock, is a face and name which certainly can be identified simply by a whistle. But there is more to this man than just whistling, as his life is a rather interesting one, if not inspirational. He was born on June the 1st, 1926, and when growing up in North Carolina, he knew that he came from a poor family, and very early on in life discovered he came from what is considered to be the wrong side of the tracks. And yet, even though poor, he would begin his interest in the stage while he was in high school, and would find himself going to the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, where he would get a degree in music. Sensing that he wanted to go ahead and be on stage, his big break would come when he would do a monologue called What Is Was Football, where he played the role of a naive preacher who was seeing his very first football game and trying to make sense of everything that was going on. This particular hit would then lead him on to doing another on-stage performance called No Time for Sergeants, which would be his next big hit, and was eventually done on both television and in film. It was through No Time for Sergeants that Andy Griffith would also meet Don Knotts, and the two would form a friendship which would last for the rest of their lives. In 1955, though, he did do his first television stint with No Time for Sergeants, and in 1960 did a guest spot on the program Make Room for Daddy. In this particular episode, Griffith did a backdoor pilot for what would eventually become The Andy Griffith Show. He played a small-town sheriff who didn't carry a gun. Audiences immediately approved of Griffith's character, and from 1960 until 1967, The Andy Griffith Show would run, where he would play the role of Sheriff Andy Taylor. Also starring with him was Don Knotts, who would play his sidekick, Deputy Barney Fife, and a very young Ron Howard, who played the role of Opie Taylor. In 1967, Griffith wanted to get away from television and go into movies, and so the show would be renamed into Mayberry RFD. But Griffith would not go ahead and forget his show, which had propelled him to fame, as he would do 5 guest spots on the program before it ended in 1968. In forming his own television company, Griffith had a number of flop shows, as his own company would attempt to create as many new television programs not only for himself, but other up-and-coming stars. In 1986, though, Andy Griffith would take on the role of Ben Matlock in the show called Matlock, which would last until 1995. Being a country lawyer, Matlock was undeniably very popular as he brought a certain southern charm and simplistic view on the justice system. After the show ended, he would reprise the role of Ben Matlock in 1997 for Diagnosis Murder, starring alongside Dick Van Dyke. And his last TV guest spot would occur in 2001 in the show Dawson's Creek. And yet, the elusive idea of being on the silver screen always seemed to go ahead and plague Andy, as in 1957, he would make his first big break in the film called A Face in the Crowd, where he would play, of all things in the world, a villain. Throughout the 1970s, TV movies which he had worked in and starred on were usually meant to create brand new television shows, but rarely ever worked. What stunned audiences the most, though, was that whenever Griffith played a villain, he would always amaze them in his ability to show himself as the bad guy and looking to the darker side of a man that everyone knew seemed to be friendly, gentle, and have a warm smile. Following his retirement from film and television, Griffith would find himself being the recipient of numerous awards. In 1999, he was inducted into the Country Gospel Music Hall of Fame. In 2005, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2007, he was inducted into the Christian Music Hall of Fame. And in 2010, he was inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. Sadly, though, all good things must come to an end, as on July 3rd, 2012, Andy Griffith passed away on Roanoke Island and is buried there in the family cemetery. Now be sure to click like, share, and subscribe for future episodes of Milling Through History, and be sure to leave comments below for future episode ideas, and be sure to take a look at our suggested reading page.